My 5th grade elementary school teacher had a saying that I've incorporated into a few videos here and there over the years, but I wanted to go out there and bring it up at the start of this video. Things that make you go, Today what we're doing is referring to the 4th period's newest article. This is the Summer Trade Watch 2024 list and the top 25 names. This list is up to date as of June 17th, 2024, so yesterday. I'll assume that this will get updated later today and maybe later on in the week as well. David Pagnotta and the 4th period crew usually go out there and have one central trade list article, and they update it as the season goes on as to who gets traded, etc., etc. But in this video, what I wanted to do was talk about one of the only guys that the Vancouver Canucks are apparently interested in, at least according to this list. Now, the first name that the Vancouver Canucks are linked to in this piece is number 5. It is Marty Necas from the Carolina Hurricanes. Not a surprise there. Okay, fine. But there is a second name listed on this Trade Watch piece that the Vancouver Canucks are indeed linked to. And you're already seeing it. It's in the title. It's in the thumbnail. Let's talk about Kaapo Kakko. This is the 4th period's write-up on him. The Rangers continue to dangle Kakko as trade bait, as GM Chris Drury looks to bolster his lineup for next season, as the Rangers have their eyes set on the 2025 Stanley Cup. Kakko's time could be running out as they look for upgrades. Teams reportedly linked are the Buffalo Sabres, the Minnesota Wild, the Anaheim Ducks, and the Vancouver Canucks. Okay, expansion bros, unite. That could be a very interesting conversation there, but I wanted to talk about the Canucks, also get some thoughts in there for the Wild, the Sabres, the Ducks, and, of course, what the New York Rangers could be looking to get out of all of this. But Kaapo Kakko is a very odd name, because honestly, I'd say he really has disappointed over the past few seasons, especially with the regression that he had exhibited in 23-24. This is a guy who, after posting up a fairly good season last year of 40 points in 82 games played, regressed to 19 points in 61 games played this year. This is the worst point-per-game year Kaapo Kakko has had since 2021, and he had 2 points in 15 games in the playoffs as well. Really just disappointing all over the place. Now, sure, you could say that his role on the team played a part into why he wasn't really producing. He wasn't a first-line guy this season. He was more so on the third line, bottom-of-the-lineup type material. And when it comes to the power play, he wasn't really given any options there either. So it's a very fair debate to say, hey, this guy, if he was given power play time, if he was given more minutes, if he was given a bigger role, he could have had more points and therefore could have been better. But honestly, this entire thing extends beyond just the points and the playing time. Kaapo Kakko was placed lower in the lineup for a reason. His overall game just wasn't up to snuff as it was last year. He lost his touch in a way. He stopped being able to score. He was okay two-way, defensively minded. A lot of these things were always going to be there for Kaapo Kakko, but of course, the fact that he was drafted 2nd overall, there's a lot of expectation attached to that, especially when you talk about what Kakko was doing in his draft-eligible season with TPS and Turku, and he was so good, and he was producing, and he was rivaling Jack Hughes. There were a few people that were saying that he could have been 1st overall over Hughes, which was a pretty outrageous idea at the time. I think it still is, to be frank, but it was a conversation that you could have. Now, we're 5 years into the future, Jack Hughes is a 100-point caliber player, and Kaapo Kakko is, well, Kaapo Kakko. So if a team is going out there and looking for this player on their radar, essentially they're believing in the profile that he has and the fact that he is only 23 years old. Kaapo Kakko still has some time and development to go through before he becomes the player that people will remember him as. But of course, if you're a team like the Vancouver Canucks, for example, it might be seen as a pretty big risk. Kaapo Kakko has no guarantee of quote-unquote making the Vancouver Canucks better for next season. Sure, he'll probably be cheap. It's not going to cost an arm and a leg to get Kaapo Kakko. He signed on till the end of 2025, making $2.4 million a year. This is a guy who, if he's able to go over to Vancouver and play just some stable, middle to bottom 6 caliber defensively minded hockey, then that's okay. Maybe for 2.4, that's a little bit much, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Of course, though, if the Vancouver Canucks are super interested in this guy, it would be because they believe in his offensive potential and that he could bounce back. The question is, though, do the Rangers themselves believe that that is still there too? Because if they do, then they wouldn't really need to trade Kaapo Kakko in the first place, right? The problem is, though, when it comes to the Rangers, a lot of their guys, especially towards the end of their run in this year's playoffs, did not show up in the ways that we hoped they would have. That Panarin, Zibanejad, Kreider trio, sorry, they didn't get it done. A lot of these younger dudes didn't really get it done either. Kaapo Kakko, as we had said, he didn't produce much in the playoffs, so there's kind of disappointment looming around everybody in New York. But when it comes to Kaapo Kakko, you could say that it might be at a high. This also could play into the conversations we could have with these other teams. The Buffalo Sabres, for example, if they want to get younger, they want to continue growing on that path, but they need some guys that are more so in that starting to become good phase rather than still being in their super young and trying to break into the NHL and get a roster spot phase. Same thing could be said about the Anaheim Ducks, wanting to get younger, still teams that are not really breaking in just yet, and if they wanted to capitalize on what potential still lays dormant within Kaapo Kakko, hey, be their guest. I will say as well, there's a lot more pressure for a guy like Kaapo Kakko to perform in a team like the New York Rangers because they're smack dab right in the middle of their Stanley Cup window. Now you're starting to debate whether or not it's really open and if they could go far with this core that they've got. Of course, with Igor Shesterkin, anything's possible, but still, Kaapo Kakko is subjected to so much extra criticism and hard pressure because of his situation and because of his status as a second overall pick. If he goes over to Anaheim, Buffalo, expectations are lower. Sure, people still expect more out of him, but it's not like the end of the world if he doesn't do that right away. I think that luxury doesn't really exist for the Vancouver Canucks because I think they're starting to enter that competitive, okay, they are supposed to be a good enough team to be in the playoffs and maybe make the second or third round every year. That's kind of what the goal seems to be with Patrick Allvin and Jim Rutherford. Meanwhile, the Minnesota Wild, I think they're just kind of looking for a spark anywhere, whatever it is that they could get to bolster up their team and add some extra value that happens to be younger. You would probably assume they're in on that too. So with these four teams being involved with Kaapo Kakko, the Rangers, the Ducks, the Sabres, my goodness, the Rangers? Yeah, of course they're involved. They're the team that has him right now. Excuse me, the Wild, the Ducks, the Sabres, and the Canucks. I do think it's interesting that these teams are the ones linked to Kaapo Kakko, and I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you are a Rangers fan, what is it that you would want from any of these teams for your guy, KK? And if you're a fan of the Ducks, Canucks, the Sabres, or the Wild, what is the most that you would be willing to give up in a Kaapo Kakko swap? Honestly, for me, it really depends on the evaluation here. Like, if you see Kaapo Kakko as the young guy who had 40 points last year and who's just one season away from being able to do that again and maybe more, then of course, you're probably thinking about a first-round pick or really high second or maybe a roster player that's already fine but a little bit older. If you don't really believe in Kaapo Kakko and you think of him more as a cap dump or a younger guy that's more of a bust, then you're probably not going to be willing to pay a lot for that. And I think the Rangers are sort of leaning more so in that territory too. Like, of course, nobody's going to admit that. Everybody recognizes that he's still young. There's still a lot of time here, but this is starting to look a lot like that doomsday clock, dude. Seconds are remaining here on the dime. And for Kaapo Kakko, if he doesn't start to show off soon that he can be that player, then maybe soon there would be more reasons to trade him. Who really knows? So Ducks fans, Wild fans, Canucks fans, Sabres fans, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the idea of trading for Kaapo Kakko of the New York Rangers. Do you like this idea? Do you not? I'll speak one more time from the perspective of a Canucks fan. If Kaapo Kakko gets added onto this team, he doesn't guarantee to make the team better. I think if you try to play him with Pettersson, that could be an interesting idea, but I think Pettersson, who has suffered so much already playing with Michkov and Lafreniere, I don't really know if he gets any better by playing with a guy like Kaapo Kakko. I don't know, who really knows? You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this Vishashros 99, and bye.